One of the biggest trends we're seeing here in the Sacramento real estate market is that a lot of people are choosing to rent over buy. Maybe it's because of the inventory, maybe it's because of high interest rates, but that's one of the things we're seeing. So today's scenario, we talk a little bit about renting versus buying in the Sacramento real estate market. Aaron, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man, and this is topic du jour for sure. I mean, it makes sense on the surface, especially if you follow mainstream media. They don't really go too deep into the why behind the numbers. Because it's just not as exciting. But as we're going to show everybody, when you do dive deeper into the numbers, it can be really hard to make a decision on whether it actually makes more sense to rent versus buy.
Yeah, I mean, number one is I always think that you should have a team that supports whatever decision you got. Not hardcore
Sure.
pressing you into buying something, not saying you should do this, you should do that. You should be there to basically like as a lender, as a broker, as a realtor on my end, it's like you should be there to support the decisions of your clients. Whether they decide to rent,
Hmm.
whether they decide to buy, your role in this is to educate and to basically do a little real estate therapy for some people because it gets a little confusing. And today's scenario is very confusing. We got a couple that basically sold their house in the Bay Area, and after all is said and done, they got $1 million in the bank. They're thinking about coming out here, and it is surprise, surprise, May, and they know it's going to get hot in Sacramento here, and they want to get into a certain school district. They want to make the move, and we're going to and we talking to them over the phone. They're like, maybe we rent. Maybe we do that. We're not seeing the inventory we want, and we're a little scared of this market. What do you think about that, Aaron?
I've thought about it myself. I mean, I've talked about on this show for like 2 years. It feels like I want to move up the hill, and I've got kind of a unique thing that I'm looking for. So it's taken a lot longer for me to find something. But one of the boxes that I have to be able to check, for my list of whether or not this house makes sense is the school district you're talking about. I got two small kids, and there are only so many houses available, right? And when you filter things in more, where it's like, all right, instead of just houses in Sacramento or Folsom or wherever, I want houses in Sacramento that are within this school district. Oh yeah, and also check off all these other boxes. Maybe it's that I wanted a pool or a certain amount of bed and bath count or whatever. And so for me, I find it, kind of, it's not too often that something that I'm interested in, something that I would want my family to be in, shows up in the neighborhood that I'm looking for. And so, you'd mentioned, before we really kick this off, was like, whatever professionals that you're working with in your real estate journey, we hope that it's Mark and I, but whoever it is, you don't want anybody pushing you one direction or another. They should be an educator, a teacher. I think Mark's really coined the term time your life, not the market. And that totally plays true in this scenario as well. Is like, you know, it's in my opinion, it's impossible to time the market, right? If that was, I'd be doing something else or whatever. But as far as timing your life goes, obviously you got to be able to afford things that you got to fit within that realm of reality. But when we're talking about timing life, a big part of that life timing is the whole schools and being in a specific school district and all that. So that can definitely play a big role just from that standpoint. Obviously, there's all sorts of numbers behind appreciation and different things, and we'll dive more into that. But what do you think as far as like, I know like for you, when you moved to Gold River, it was really important. Like your daughter had to be at a certain school and all that stuff. Like that was a big part of timing your life, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a huge thing for us. I mean, the main reason why we stayed in Gold River was schools. My daughter already made friends and we didn't want to put her through that again. And also, the other thing, too, we had family around here, too. So for us, that was the main reason, one of the main reasons we chose Gold River. And we got lucky. Gold River is doing, as far as appreciation, as far as like everything, Gold River is doing really, really well. But for us, it was one of those things that, like, we're seeing more and more people that are like, hey, look, if we're gonna rent or we're gonna buy, we want to stay in the same school district. So it's like, for us, it was like no brainer. My daughter was like, look, I got my friends, I got stabilized, I like it, it's good, and we're there. Now, for people in the Bay Area, you got to make the jump here to Sacramento eventually. I mean, if you sold in like $1 million cash in the bank and you're saying, I want to buy, but if we're not seeing what we want to see, we could rent. And a lot of people who we talk to are like, look, if we're going to buy something, let's say in Elk Grove, the 757, we also want to rent there too. So that way we're renting in the same school district that we're eventually going to buy in. And that tends to be something that's a common thing, right? You're saying, look, if I'm making the move up to Sacramento, we want to rent, but at the same time, we don't want to move the kids from Folsom, then to Elk Grove, then to Fair Oaks, wherever. And so that's a tough thing to do. A lot of people, assume that there's rentals everywhere and rentals are easy to get into. They're not as easy to get into as people assume. And rental rates, even though they are better than the Bay Area, they're just still not like completely like, wow, it's $1,000 a month for a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. They're still pretty spendy too.
Sure.
And that's an interesting thing. And it also brings up like you just got to figure out your research on the schools. What school is going to work for you? Like moving kids from school to school to school. And even if it's like, let's say in Elk Grove, right? Let's just take that for an instance, right? You got a bunch of zip codes there. You got the 624, you got the 758, and you got the 757. And it's not a guarantee that, the middle school, which middle school you'll get. They're also building a whole lot more new schools over in the 757 probably. So you got new schools popping up as well too. So you got to be very strategic. If you plan on renting and you want to buy in that same area, and it's not an easy thing to do. And we haven't even talked about leasing, right? The lease, as far as like, it's not easy to get a 6-month lease. It's just not an easy thing in Sacramento. A lot of people are kind of wise to it. You might be paying more money for a 6-month lease. You might have to put a lot more of a security deposit down, and you're not going to get really the pick of the litter. So that also plays into it. What do you think about that as far as from a lender point of view? If someone's locked into a lease and maybe December rolls around for some crazy reason, interest rates are lower, inventory's better, they find a house. How does that work for you on your side?
Well, that's definitely part of the affordability question, right? It's very common when we talk to somebody in the initial stage of their home purchase journey that they're paying rent somewhere and they're in some form of an agreement, whether it's a 6-month, 12-month or month-to-month lease, that they have to be able to navigate basically, not failing their obligation with their landlord, causing themselves problems, credit, all those kinds of things, along with obtaining the new property and being able to afford everything. So, in a perfect world, the lease ends and, you move into your place and, you've got that like 30, 45-day window where you don't have that first mortgage payment. So you're not out of pocket anything extra. But we don't live in a perfect world, obviously.
Nope.
And in my experience, usually you find what you're looking for when you're not looking for it, right? It's like as soon as you signed that 12-month lease, that's when your dream house comes onto the market that checks all the boxes, that's in the school district, et cetera, et cetera. So ultimately, as far as like from a lender's perspective, most loans that you do will not require you providing a copy of that lease. If for some reason you were doing some type of financing where you have to provide a copy of that rental lease, the lender, may make you count both of those payments in your debt to income ratios. That's kind of an odd scenario. So typically it's more so for us, like trying to help the buyer navigate juggling both payments. And I've had clients literally where they've had like 6 months left on their lease, and their dream home came up, and like life was right for them. And in fact, you and I helped somebody that they ended up buying in San Ramon. I won't say their name, but they had this exact scenario where they had several months left in their rental agreement, but they wanted that house. They didn't want to wait. They kind of understood the cost of waiting, how things keep getting more expensive the longer you wait, basically. And they ended up, I can't remember exactly how many months they had in their lease, but they ended up paying it out of pocket. That was just like, for them, they wanted to just basically move on, get this new house, buy the new house. And so they paid, I think, maybe 3-4 months of rent at their previous place. That was just, some would view that as wasted money. Others would just view it as like, hey, they wanted to make that deal happen, and that was part of the cost of making it happen. But either way, everybody's got to make their own decision on what makes the most sense for them. I will say that it is very difficult to find a single family residence that you can fit a family in, that's in a neighborhood that you're going to want to, most likely, that you're going to want to send your kids to school to, that's going to be on a month to month lease. I mean, those are nice rentals typically. And so if you're in the rental business, you don't like being in a month to month game. You want long-term rents, you want a year or more, so that you've got certainty and you can move on to, the next house in your portfolio, not constantly trying to find my next tenant. And, if
Yep.
you're paying a property manager, not having a tenant is really expensive if it's a regular thing, because not only do you have the expenses of maintaining the property, but that property manager, they usually earn a commission when they find that tenant. So if I'm losing tenants every couple of months or whatever, that's a costly scenario. So it's going to be hard finding that diamond in the rough, in my opinion, but definitely possible. That's, it's all about coordinating with your team and making sure that you got everybody, pulling on the rope in the same direction, right?
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, you got to just everyone's got to be on the same page. You got to like be firing on all cylinders. And the other thing too is like a lot of people maybe watching this from the Bay Area, guys, like Sacramento isn't just a one-stop shop lifestyle. Like there's a lot of research, whether you're renting, whether you are buying, whether you're even visiting. Sacramento's got so much here. We got golf course communities, living on the water, close to downtown, close to, air houses you can buy. You can buy where you got a boat or an RV space. We got so much stuff. You got areas that are like El Dorado Hills are more in the hills. You got areas like Elk Grove, they're a little bit more flat. You got man-made lakes and everything too. So another big thing for a lot of people too is if someone's saying, hey, you know what, we're going to rent for a year and we're going to explore Sacramento, I would actually advise maybe even do some exploring prior, because like I said, moving the kids from one area to the next area to the next area isn't fun to do, and right now, here's a crazy part about this, Aaron. Like right now, if you're someone who's looking to basically move into Sacramento and start school in August, now's the time that you're registering. Like right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you haven't done your education, if you haven't figured out exactly where you're going to be and everything too, you're like, it's a 911 stress sandwich right now, because you're like,
Sure.
what do we do? We heard Folsom's great. Elk Grove's fine. I don't know. You gotta figure out where that's gonna be. So I would say that's another thing to keep in mind. A lot of this stuff you can't really do last minute. It's not like you can say, hey, look, this summer we're gonna look in Sacramento, find a rental, then we'll get the cool kids all scheduled in school and we're good to go. Guys, registration's starting like now. So that's something to take into account as well too. You know what I mean, Aaron?
Well, that's in addition to sports. I didn't even think about that. We just did my daughter's registration like I think 2-3 weeks ago for next year. And then you've got, if you layer on sports, which a lot of people in this region, they're big into sports. We've got, it's like everywhere you turn, there's a brand new stadium somewhere, and there's somebody's playing soccer, football, baseball. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and those leagues, they don't just start at any time. So it's definitely, if you're moving your family out here and you got school to deal with, sports, all that stuff, it's not a last minute move. That's something that you want to be strategic about, at least if you want to have a, you know, a as little of a stressful process as you can when buying a house.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, and the moving too. Movers tend to be a lot more pricey during
Mm-hmm.
summertime.
Oh
Contractors, it's
yeah.
hard to get a lot of contractors as well too. So it's like, yeah, like if you are planning to actually be here by August, I know you want to go on that vacation to Maui. I know it's calling your name, but it's a hard thing to coordinate this stuff. Get in school, find a rental, find a house, rental or house, either way. So I would say just like, just
Mm-hmm.
understand that this is going to be a little bit of a stress case, especially also with, just realistically speaking, with the inventory we got right now in the market. I mean, it's just, I mean, this is Folsom right here. And it's like, you know, there's not, I mean, there's stuff on the market. Of course, you're going to see this. Sacramento real estate app, by the way. And you're going to see some really like houses and everything too. But a lot of these things are probably going to be gone. I mean, a lot of these things are going to probably be gone if they're priced right, probably within a couple of days. So it's like, you got to kind of start looking like this second. And, you know, like for the couple that we were talking about that has a million, I mean, even that, like, look at this. This is like, we'll take a look at a house, and this is like just under a million, but I mean, super price, super competitive as well. Like, gorgeous house, you know. They want a pool. I don't know if this one's got one, but like, this is what you're looking for, like for a mill, you know. It's like, it's just not a hard thing. And if you're looking at one of these markets like a Folsom or like an Elk Grove or one of those markets a lot of people have heard from like, you know, outside of Sacramento, it's probably going to get into the stage sooner than later, because we normally see it around like end of May, beginning of June, where it's like appraisal contingency waived, loan contingency
Mm-hmm.
waived. Now the lucky part for these guys though, they got about $1 million to spend on a house. But also, here's a crazy part about our market right now though: cash buyers, it's like, I don't know, like 70% or something is coming in right now to the market. So it's like, you know, you might be thinking, we got cash, shouldn't be a problem. Man, you're running into a lot of people, baby boomers who are cashing out and coming into Sacramento's market. They got all cash. You got a lot of people from the Bay Area who cashed out and they're coming in as well too. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
could you be into a market where all of a sudden you're like, hey, we got cash, we want to make an offer? Yeah, but you could be competing against other cash offers as well too. So end of
Totally.
May, June, July, it's going to get really, really hot here. So don't just assume because you got $1 million cash, you're just going to walk in and make it happen. And then we haven't even hit the inventory part. Inventory is still basically anemic right now. So just be prepared for that. Now, I'm not saying buying is impossible, and I'm not saying renting you should do or buying you should do, whatever. But I will say, though, there are definite plans that your team should be getting you on, whether you're going for the rental route or you're going to go for the buying route. You know what I mean, Aaron?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, part of figuring out what plan you should be on, which, you know, that's not our decision to make for you. We're providing you all the information that you need to make an educated decision. But one of the things that I feel it's important to touch on, a lot of people, when they say that they want to wait to buy, it's not because they don't want to buy a house today. It's because they think that it's one of two things: that home prices are too expensive, or that interest rates are too high, or, you know, maybe it's a combination of those two things. And, you know, everybody has been completely incorrect in terms of when rates are going to come down, myself included. I mean, it's just like it's caught everybody off guard how sticky inflation has been. And, you know, rates aren't coming down anytime soon. Anybody that's, you know, planning on, you know, 5% rates sometime this year's, you're going to be, you know, sadly, you know, mistaken most likely. But the other thing that, you know, a lot of people, you know, really sink their teeth into when they're like, hey, I'm going to wait, is they, for whatever reason, they think home prices are going to come down. And like, guys, I wish home prices would come down. God, I wish home prices would come down. It would be so much better for so many reasons. But I choose to live in reality. And the reality is like Mark was just talking about, inventory is anemic, even with high interest rates and, you know, a somewhat, you know, bad economy, depending on what sector of the world you work in. There's just not enough homes, and there's millions upon millions, like 9 million homes short of the amount of people that exist in this country. Whether you're in Sacramento region or LA or wherever, there's too many of you and there's not enough housing. And so it's just simple, you know, economics, supply and demand. And so the thing that you have to factor in your decision making process, if you're considering waiting, is what is it going to cost me to wait? The cost of waiting. And
Yep.
there's kind of three things specifically that are going to significantly impact your cost of waiting. One of those things is that same house that is $950,000 today, in a year from now, if it's in Folsom, for instance, assuming that it continues its year over year appreciation run rate, which is 10.3%, guys, 10.3%. That same $950,000 home, it's going to cost 95 grand more. So that's almost 1.05 million. So not only do you got to pay more for something, but now when that time comes, that's a bigger down payment. That's a bigger property tax payment. That's bigger homeowners insurance payment. So you got to pay more on all those things. Plus, if you got to borrow, you got to get a mortgage like a lot of people do. Even all these fat cats coming in with the cash, a lot of them still need a little bit of a loan a lot of times to kind of connect all the pieces. That means you got to borrow more potentially. So that means that your monthly payment could be even higher. But then on top of it, while you're renting, you're not gaining equity, right? So you're paying somebody else's rent. You're paying somebody else's mortgage. They're the ones that are gaining that equity. And when you make a monthly payment, part of what you owe goes to the actual principal balance. So you owe less over time. So you build more equity. So you basically, when you decide to wait, you kind of get, you're going to pay in two ways, really. You're going to pay a lot more in the price of the house that you end up buying in various ways, taxes, insurance, all that stuff. And then you also pay because you lose out on gaining that equity. Now, you could argue, you know what, I'm going to take that mill and I'm going to put it in, an index fund in the S&P 500, and that averages, 10% a year or whatever. Okay, great. Well, when you sell, you still got to pay capital gains tax on that. And if Biden, gets his thing he's been proposing, you'll pay a whole lot more for that unrealized gain even. But there's a lot less certainty in the stock market, I would say, versus real estate. That's why real estate's always been a hedge against inflation. So although there is other things that you could do with your money, I feel that it's hard to argue that it's better to do something else, unless you're like Grant Cardone or something. Apparently, you're best off buying your house, paying less for the house instead of paying more in the future, building equity instead of building somebody else's equity. But all of this, again, assumes that you've timed your life, not the market, and that the time is right now. If you can't afford to buy a house today, that's a completely different conversation. But if you can afford and you're contemplating whether should I do it today or should I wait a year, just know in a year you're going to pay a whole lot more. What's your thought on the cost of waiting, Mark?
Cost of waiting is there. I mean, it's always going to be there. I think Sacramento's market is hot also. Like, not just generally like those numbers you see on every single YouTube video, but Sacramento is in an interesting spot. We're affordable California, location's great, job diversity is awesome, and we're on a growth spurt like none other. So appreciation here, you're probably going to see higher appreciation in the Sacramento area. Areas like Folsom, Elk Grove, probably more than a lot of the other areas in the state. So I like us for that. And yeah, there is going to be cost of waiting. But there is a part of me on the other side that goes like, I don't know if I'd buy what I didn't want to buy. Even if I was sitting on $1 million and I wanted something specific, I don't know. It'd be a tough one for me. I don't know. Because, I think a lot of people who make the move from the Bay Area here feel like this is their one shot to kind of get what they want. Kind of like a job, when you first get hired, that's when you're going to get the most money. So it's like, I see them looking at that going like, yeah, I get the appreciation, but I want a pool. I'm moving to Sacramento for something sweet. I'm going to wait around for that. And I get it because that's kind of my I feel that way too. So there is going to be that cost of waiting, but a lot of people, like, you just got to kind of be okay with sucking that up, right? There is that, and it's just the way it is, right? It's the price is doing business. So for me, I get it. I think for you guys, if you're thinking about like maybe buying or renting, or you're kind of on the fence, I'd say like, one is, if you sold your house in the Bay Area, you should have probably had your realtor give you maybe like a little bit of a rent back. Bay Area market's still hot, so that wouldn't be a problem. Or maybe you're riding it until maybe like, I don't know, if you could, maybe 3 months or something like that. So that way you can kind of get a little bit of an idea and a cushion to find a house here. For me, the times I always recommend for people to look for houses specifically is in August, when schools get back in. I know it's not great, but and it kind of puts you down to the wire. But August is a great spot. I also like the area between like Halloween and maybe like beginning of like January, because of weather, holidays, and everything too. I like those times for buying specifically. Now, the bad part about renting, though, especially if you jump into a rent right now, is that honestly, 12-month, let's say you can't find a 6-month lease, 12 months, you're back to this time of the year next year. Now, a lot of people are saying interest rates might go down a little bit, inventory might get better, but honestly, those things don't ever really correlate together. It's either one or the other. Interest rates go down, inventory gets eaten up. Interest rates go up, inventory stacks up. So I just don't know if in a year's time you're going to be in a better position. Education-wise, you probably will. And you'll know the area a little bit better because you'll be going to restaurants and everything too. But I think if you do jump into a rental and say, look, we're just going to rent for a year, it's too crazy, everything too, you could be in this same exact situation, same amount of inventory, interest rates, who knows where they're going to be at. And you're going to know the area a little bit better. So you're going to be a little bit more educated on the area. Hopefully you're working with our team. But it's just not a great scenario. If anything, how I would run it, and a lot of people also who are looking for new homes might be waiting for them to complete. I would try my best to get a 6-month lease. Because like I said, I think that lines you up perfectly for like the holiday season. I would say, work with a property manager. We have a few we can recommend to you. I would say like, what you're going to probably see in like those months of like November, October, December, you're going to see lower demand. There's going to be lower inventory because people don't really like listing their homes there. But I'd say, honestly, like there's going to be lower inventory, but demand is going to be like that. So I think you have a better shot. I would also start looking at the new homes towards the end of the year as well, too, because I think that new homes are, I love the new home people, whatever, but new home builders tend to be the greediest people on the face of the planet in real estate. They tend to overbuild and they want to get rid of it by Q4. And you tend to see some good deals happen towards the end of the year if you're thinking of new homes. So that would be my plan if I was actually looking I had $1 million in the bank. I couldn't find what I'm looking for, right now. That would kind of be my plan. If you guys have questions about it, listen, we work with a lot of relocations. But Aaron is right. You got to have either that idea. You have to understand that there is a cost of waiting. Now, you just have to either have two mindsets. One is the like, cost of waiting is too much for us, we're just going to jump in. Or the other mindset is I'm going to take it on the chin, cost of waiting, and cost of waiting is fine. I'm fine with that. I know the houses prices are going to go up. But I'd rather take that on the chin and find what I'm looking for. Kind of like what you're doing, right, Aaron? You're kind of like, well, house prices are going up. And I already accepted that reality. It's not like tomorrow house prices are going to be down to zero. Everyone's lost their shirt and everyone's freaking out. It's just not going to be that market. So for you, because you and I have talked about this offline, you kind of are like, you're in a great situation right now because Aaron's a veteran, so he's got a great loan. His house is good. Of course, he wants to get that house in Shingle Springs, and he realizes also that home prices are going to continue to go up. But at the same time, you're kind of like in that situation. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, I'm totally in that spot. The neighborhood that we want to move into, there's a gated neighborhood. There's 340 houses in the neighborhood. That's it. And, it's not like all 340 of them are for sale. Usually, one or two come up, ever so often. And just because it's located in that neighborhood doesn't mean that it checks all my boxes. Some of them have been too small, and, the one that we're considering, it was just way too big. It was like completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. So, I've totally accepted the fact that I'm just gonna, end up paying more for something, and that's the cost of doing business, the cost of waiting. Because for me, I'm already in my, my house. I'm looking, I'm in my mid 40s, and this next move that I make that'll be my quote unquote, forever house or whatever that I at least have to be able to live in for, a good 10, 15, 20 years or something. So I'm okay with waiting longer and finding the right place for me. But I'm also okay with that because I'm not out of the market. I'm gaining equity. I'm, uh, I already own a house. So it's not
Yeah.
like I'm on the sidelines not participating in the real estate market. If I was not participating in the real estate market and I was inactive, I think my opinion would be different. And it's just because I know the power of gaining appreciation. I mean, that's the biggest wealth builder in America. That's why homeowners are 40 times wealthier than renters. It's all about the equity, and you can't build that if you don't own it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, like, okay, so like for me, for example, like 2.5 years ago, I bought into Gold River, right? Now, one of the things I'd
Mm-hmm.
recommend to you guys listening out there too is make a list, a needs list and a wants list. Okay, those are very two
Sure.
different and important things. I would say that if you're one of those people who are like, look, I'm good if we find these things on our needs list, our wants list, maybe a pool, maybe not, whatever. I would say if your realtor's good, and like I said, there's a lot, whatever. They're just be careful. You can buy into spots that historically have had good appreciation or spots that are a little bit better, hedging your bet. Like for us, for example, like my wife and I, we bought a house that I would consider an 8. Okay, like it's an 8. It's not a 9. It's not a 10. I mean, there are certain things about this house we would definitely change, but it was an 8. Now, for me, like I've worked with a lot of clients here, like Gold River, I knew was due. I knew it was one of those spots no one's heard about, and I think that like buying a house here, even though the HOAs are horrible here, we bought there, right? And we made money on our house. We put in about maybe 50 grand to our house. And right now we could sell it for about 150, probably about $150,000 more than we paid for about 2.5 years ago. So that's kind of where we're at right now, but it was strategic, right? I say to my wife, all right, look, we're going to stay here for about maybe 5 to 7 years, but we're going to do things that make it a little bit better. It's still an awesome house. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but is it like my dream home? Is it like everything that it checked every single box for me on my needs and wants list? No, it did all the needs, some of my wants. So I would say if you're thinking about buying, if you're in that spot where you say, look, I'd rather buy, just create that list of needs and wants and kind of work with a real estate team that can show you historical metrics, stuff that's developing in areas so that you could hedge your bets as much as humanly possible to actually making money off the house or whatever house you jump into. Now, real estate is not a guarantee. It's not a crystal ball thing. And it definitely does matter about the lender you work with and the real estate agent you work with. If you're working with someone that's looking for that long lasting relationship, I find that they treat it better. If you're looking for that like Zillow, hey, I got someone to open a door for me, it doesn't work as well. So I would say work with a team that actually has that relationship concept in mind, I think, and also understand that not all areas in Sacramento are created equally. And if you do plan on buying and you find an 8 and it hits a lot of your needs and some of your wants and you don't want to go the rental aspect, just make sure you're hedging your bets as much as humanly possible. That'd be my final point on this. Aaron, how about you?
No, you hit everything on the head, man. That's great.
All right, Aaron, any parting words after we're let everyone out? This is a scenario, $1 million cash. If you're thinking about renting, if you're thinking about buying in the Sacramento area and you're perplexed, it's a difficult situation. And hopefully this video helped you, as well as if you want to reach out to Aaron, New Way Mortgage, an amazing video channel, YouTube channel. You can reach out to Aaron directly too. His information is down in the description below. As for me, I love running these scenarios because these are scenarios of people that we're working with currently. And hopefully this helped. And also we're up for calls and all that stuff too. So let us know. Aaron, any parting words?
Hey, I just want to remind everybody that it doesn't cost anything to have a conversation. So don't be afraid to reach out. We'd love to get you the info that you need to make an educated decision. And we'll see you next week.
All right, guys. And if you liked this video, like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with other people. We'll see you next week. But guys, the video just ended. But don't worry, we have more videos just like that one right over there. And if you missed that red subscribe button during the course of the video, we got you covered right there. Hit that subscribe button. We promise to bring you some amazing content. We won't let you down. Now, if you're looking for a team in the Sacramento metro area to work with, we'd love to talk to you one-on-one. We always include a Zoom link down below, so book a time where we can talk to you a little one-on-one, find out exactly what your real estate needs are.